الله وبركاته. صباح الخير. Good morning everyone. مدينة راحة حبيبة. I thank Mr. Chairman for the introduction. My name is Dr. Naweed. I work as an assistant professor in College of Medicine at Taiwan University. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to the organizing and scientific committee for their kind invitation to give my talk about the future of diabetes technology. And I wish you all best of luck in succeeding success in this beautifully arranged conference. These are my disclosures, and I'm not talking about any on behalf of any company during this talk today. In the next 25 minutes, inshallah, and maybe less, a little bit, we'll be going through different forms of the diabetes technology future. And I thought that at least we should be talking about the currently available or in the near soon will be available technology at our country, and where are we going in the next inshallah few years. So this will be the major points, major topics where I will be focusing on. Briefly, I will be discussing the connected insulin pen, followed by the continuous glucose monitor, followed by the advances in the insulin pump, followed by the role of telemedicine in management and following up diabetic patients. So to begin with, connected pens, these are called smart pens, and basically they are called smart because they are connected to an application where patients can have the ability to track the amount of insulin that remains in the pen, track the temperature of the insulin, which I think is essential in our country. Might not be that important for Baja, but in the rest of the country it be extremely essential. Provide the reminder. This is very important for the missed doses. As we understand that we do have a lot of our patients who are missing their insulin doses, and they are eating their meals without correcting. So when they will be using such technology of the smart insulin pen, that will help them to give them reminder about their missed doses, and that will also help them to track how much insulin is remain on board, so it will avoid the idea of insulin stacking, so they will be able to take more correction doses after certain meals. And we do have two companies. The one that is, inshallah, will be soon available in Saudi Arabia is the Medtronic InPen, and they are bringing this technology along with the Medtronic Guardian Connect sensor in the form of smart MDI system. So what do they have? They will have an application in the phone that the patients will be able to download, and this is the pen, and this pen will be connected via Bluetooth to this application, and they will have another application for their own continuous glucose monitor, and both applications will be showing basically the amount of insulin the patient is injecting, and also their patient reading of their own glucose detected by the continuous glucose monitor. So it's basically something called smart MDI, where the patients will be able to see their own glucose readings along on how much insulin they have taken. And it will also help them to track the active insulin time, give them data about their history, and it will also help them to give them, to determine what's their insulin temperature looks like. And this pen will last up to 1 year. There is no need to charge. The only thing is required by the patient is really to buy the cartridges of the insulin cartridges, and they will have two different colors of pen. One is going to be available for the Humalog cartridge. The other one will be available for the Novorapid cartridge. The only issue we might have till now that we do not have those cartridges widely available throughout our country. But once that become available, that will be an excellent technology to be used for those patients who are not willing to go on insulin pump, or at least to get prepared before going into insulin pump, where they can track everything needed regarding their diabetes in terms of their glucose values, their active insulin time, the amount of carbohydrates they are eating on daily basis, as well as the insulin on board, without having the concern about forgetting their doses, as this application will provide them with reminders in case if they forget to take their insulin. Novo also has their own pen. It is not available in Saudi Arabia, but it's almost similar idea. It also gets synchronized with different applications, like My Sugar and My Sugar Hub. And basically, it also has the ability for the CGM and blood glucose integration, and with a similar idea, but still not available in Saudi Arabia. One thing is to notice about those pens, they have the ability to give the 0.5 units of insulin. As we understand, especially in some of the pediatric population, that might make a huge difference. That some patients might only require 0.5 or 1.5 or 2.5, and the full dose might be too much for them. So giving an increment of 0.5 using this smart pen will be another option that might help those patients. Switching gears to the CGMs, we currently have available Dexcom G6 in the market, Guardian Connect with the Guardian Sensor 4, not 3. We have the widely available freestyle liquid flash, which we call an intermittent scan CGM, and also widely available and being used, especially in Europe, is the Eversense CGM. To understand the differences between the CGM, we understand the CGM basically it calculates the interstitial fluid glucose values, and it's not an actual blood glucose value. There has always be some sort of differences, especially after meal and after exercise, as well as after taking the medication. But we are not really depending on an actual value as much as we are actually looking into the array and range of data that is being provided by this technology. And I believe you will have a dedicated lecture about the time and range. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just going to provide you the differences between the different available CGMs. So the Dexcom G6 has a 10 days work time, only 2 hours warm-up period, does not require any calibration unless the symptoms are not matching the reading. It is very easy to insert, and it has been approved by FDA for dosing decision. In the future, this is what we have right now, the Dexcom G6. In the future, we will have the Dexcom G7, which is going to change the way we think about CGM, because it's going to be very small, very thin, and it still carries the same accuracy. It is again factory calibrated, does not require calibration, and it's designed for extended wear. And most importantly, it is very small with compared to the current CGM, it's 60% smaller. It has a less warm-up period. Instead of 2 hours, it's going to be warming up in 30 minutes, and it has a better accuracy, and it has one piece, one applicator, and has the ability to be integrated into the Apple Watch. And also, it is going to be one piece. There is no need for inserting a transmitter and inserting a sensor. It's going to be one piece, one applicator, very easy insertion, and that is going to be much better. And those of you who have patients on G6 will understand, and that transmitter is a different part from the sensor, and in this G7 will be all in one. Then we have the Medtronic Guardian Connect. Most recently, we got the Guardian Connect sensor, sensor 4, which does not require calibration. The old one required calibration. least 2 times a day, and it charges every 7 days. The beauty of the Guardian Connect sensor that it has the transmitter that lasts for up to 1 year, and that is indifferent with the versus the Dexcom transmitter. So these are the Guardian sensors, electronic sensors. As you can see, the Guardian Sensor 4, which just recently became available in Saudi Arabia, it has a shelf life of 12 months. We always had a problem with the previous sensors, which had a shelf life less than 12 months. But also, the beauty in this new sensor that it does not require calibration, which actually showed us that it has a much better accuracy, and it lasts up to 7 days, like the previous one, but it's approved for 7 years or older. What is going to come in the future? We are going to have an integrated transmitter with each sensor and 50% volume reduction from the Guardian 3 with a redesigned adhesive tape, which is going to be a much better way to attach the sensor. And then we will also have this much smaller in size, much smaller, much simpler to attach. As you can see, this is the currently available sensor, and this will be the simpler, much smaller in size, much applicable to attach, and they are still in the phase 2 to phase 3 trials. Hopefully, we might get this in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, if we think about the CGM and Medtronic that is being provided by Medtronic, along with the smart pen, along with this great technology of the sensor 4, we are basically talking about a smart MDI system for those patients who choose not to go on the insulin pump. They will be still able to monitor their diet, their glucose values, their active insulin on board, and get the reminders about missing insulin doses and track their temperature while on multiple daily injections. Most widely available throughout Saudi Arabia is the Freestyle Libre. This was what was available up to last year. It has a 14 days wear time, one first inserter, and it was approved for insulin dosing except in the first 12 hours after the insertion. And we understand the newer version is now become available in most of the diabetes centers, has a better algorithm with a better mark. It also has the ability to give alarms for high flows and remind patients to scan. As we understand, this is an intermittently scanned CGM, and the patient needs to scan at least every 8 hours to get the full set of data. And sometimes if the patients forget to scan, then we will not have a full set of data, and this Libre 2 will give them alarm if they forget to scan. It also is smaller in size, and there is no need to confirm with highs and lows unless symptoms are not matching the readings. And that does apply to any sensor, not only Libre 2. What's in the future? We are looking forward to get the Libre 3, which has much better accuracy, and also the size of the Libre 3 sensor is much smaller, like 70% smaller compared to the previous sensor. And with continuous real-time glucose reading, it might be we are talking that Libre 3 might send the readings and trends every single minute on Freestyle Libre 3 smartphone application. Is that going to be a real-time CGM like Dexcom? We don't know yet, since we do not have it available in our country, and it's not widely available throughout the world. It's still being studied. but we are looking forward in the future to get it and use it widely. This is an implantable CGM, which is called Eversense. It's by the company named Athenia. It has an advanced technology. The sensor actually lasts up to 180 days, and this is a kind of might be very useful for a lot of patients who are not willing to change their sensors every 2 weeks or every 10 days. This is something that lasts up to 180 days, and it has an advanced technology of transmitting the data directly to the application that the patient usually downloads. The only problem with the Eversense that it still requires calibration twice a day, and it requires a simple procedure that is usually done in the clinic by the physician to implant this sensor. It's still not available in Saudi Arabia, but it's available in the European market. This is just a comparison in between the widely available CGMs. As I said, that all of them are good. Most of them provide the data we need. There might be differences in terms of the mean absolute relative difference between those different types. But we understand if we want to divide the CGM, really it's really the real-time CGM versus the intermittently scanned CGM. And these differences usually might help some patients who might benefit some from the real-time versus the intermittently scanned. But CGM technology is great, and it's now available for all type 1 diabetic patients, and I'm sure that it's really helping our patients as well as the healthcare providers to track the data in a much better way and make decisions to help patients achieve better glycemic control and prevent the acute complications that might happen with type 1 diabetes. Why do we need CGM? As we understand, barely our patients might be checking their glucose value, because it is kind of challenging to do that a couple of times a day. But what happens in between those glucose values is really challenging. The CGM will provide us the full picture, not only the certain point data. And this full picture will be able to be downloaded in a report which has around 10 metrics, and you will have a detailed lecture about this report. I'm pretty sure you have heard about the term of time and range, and this is what we are looking for. But to achieve that, we have to work on the other metrics to get a better time and range and so on. Moving gears to the insulin pump, and over here, I'm not going to only talk about the insulin pump, which is basically always easier to take and track the insulin and insulin pump, but I'm going to focus on the integrated insulin pump, where the pump are responding to the CGM data. So if we go back into history, the world's first integrated insulin pump and CGM, which actually showed the real-time CGM data on the pump, and it only delivered the alerts and alarms based on the sensor value. So this was back in 2006, around 18 years ago, where patients will be able to get the alarms that, listen, your glucose values are actually high or low on their actual pump. Then from 2009 to 2013, the pump itself used to stop when the glucose reaches a low threshold. So the patient reaches the glucose value of a low threshold that is being set up by the healthcare provider, the pump will stop the delivery of the insulin. Then it got better, actually, that the pump and the sensor will have the ability to stop the insulin delivery before reaching the low threshold, and that was really back in 2015, and that's what we call the predicted low glucose suspense, and then it resumes by itself the delivery of insulin when the glucose levels recover. After that, we got the 670 by Medtronic, which actually not only stopping the delivery of insulin before it reaches the low threshold, but also it provided the patients with automatic basal insulin delivery. Mean, for example, patients will have different basal insulin delivery on different times of the day based on their sensor value. And then the most advanced one, widely available in the last 2 years, it is what we call the advanced hybrid closed loop system, which is by Medtronic called the Minimed 780. And I'm going to show you at the end of my presentation the differences between this technology versus the Control IQ by Tandem. The difference between the 780 versus the 670, the previous version, that this version actually also helps to provide an auto correction post meals when the patient reaches the maximum basal. So it helps to keep the patient in a much better time range. The goal in the next 5 to 7 years is to reach really the artificial pancreas. So what is an advanced hybrid closed system? It consists of an insulin pump, and this insulin pump will have settings where actually the healthcare provider can adjust it based on the patient in front of them. And then a continuous glucose sensor, and this continuous glucose sensor will be talking and communicating with the pump with an algorithm. And this is what is really making the difference of this advanced hybrid closed loop. This algorithm is different and is being used between different companies. For example, the one that is being used in Medtronic is called PID, or Proportional Integral Derivative Controller. The one that is being used by Omnipod or Tandem or Beta Bionics is called MPC, or Model Predictive Control. And those differences are basically differences in the algorithm itself. In the future, and hopefully very soon in the Saudi market, also we are going to get the infusion set, what we call the extended wear infusion set, because remember, those patients who are wearing the pump, they have to change their infusion set every 3 days. The extended infusion set, the patients will have to change it every 7 days. So that means less needle insertion, and that will be really great and helpful for our patients. Future-wise, what we are looking for is really not only the pump or the integrated CGM, but we are looking in the future to get hopefully the all-in-one patch pump, where patients will only have to insert one thing, where the pump, CGM, and the tube will be combined. And it's I think it's going to happen in the future. Now, in terms of the pump, we also have the patch pump that is available in Saudi Arabia, is the Solo, and we also have the Omnipod that is available in the Saudi market. The disadvantage of this Omnipod that is available in Saudi Arabia is that it's not an advanced hybrid closed loop, but it is basically attaches tubelessly without tube for the patient. The Omnipod Horizon that is available in the United States now is integrated with Dexcom G6. It is an advanced hybrid closed loop. We are hoping that it will reach soon to Saudi market. When we want to compare the advanced hybrid closed loop that is available in the Saudi market, the Medtronic 780 versus the Tandem, we might do the comparison based on three aspects. So if we want to compare the pump, these are the different comparisons which we can see. I think mostly the Tandem has a modern touch screen versus the Medtronic 780, which has carried the medical appearance. There are some differences in terms of the clip as well as the reservoir, that in Tandem patients will need to fill the reservoir with the needle and syringe. One of the major differences is really the charging. Medtronic patient has to charge using the AA battery once weekly, but the Tandem actually has a rechargeable lithium battery that charges then requires only like you're charging your phone 10 to 15 minutes daily. So these are the major differences in between the pump. If you want to look at the difference in between the sensor, the Guardian 4 sensor, which is the most advanced one, it has a life of 7 days versus 10 days for the Tandem. The sensor, both of them does not require finger stick for calibration. Basically, the Medtronic sensor might be a little bit difficult to insert versus the Tandem sensor. The Tandem sensor has a higher weight, 12 grams versus 7 grams. Both are connected to their own application, and both work on different algorithms. So these are the difference in the algorithm. Without going into much detail, the Medtronic 780 will have the algorithm using, targeting a specific target values based on which they will be delivering an auto correction. But in the Tandem, basically, it's, because they are using a different algorithm, they will be targeting the range between 112.5 to 160. Also, Medtronic has the ability of using a temporary target, but in Tandem, they have beautifully two different modes called sleep mode and sports mode that can be used. And there are parameters that still need to be changed in Tandem, like the basal insulin rate, the carb ratio, the insulin sensitivity factor, the weight. While in Medtronic, the only thing that needs to be changed is really the carb ratio and the active insulin time. The other thing, the active insulin time is fixed in Tandem, and it can be changed in Medtronic. So as you can see, there are differences between the pump itself, between the sensor, and between the algorithm. And it's your decision and the patient decision to choose which one of them. In the future, we are looking forward to get the Beta Bionic iLet pump, which actually the pump not only providing insulin to the patient, but also glucagon once the patient's blood glucose goes below range. And it's not asking patients to do the insulin to carb ratios, but actually just asking the patient about amount of meal they are eating, like a small meal, medium-sized meal, and large meal. And as you can see, there will be 2 infusion sets, one for the glucagon and one for the insulin. Still in phase 2 to 3 trials. We have robust data so far. We're looking forward to get it in the near future. We are using technology, but we have to set up some realistic expectation that this technology is not a cure, it's a tool. The patient sometimes will need to check their glucose. It needs more freedom, but not the grace. And the patient will be connected to it all the time. Briefly, I'm just going to talk about the telemedicine. It's basically where patients are getting the care without the need to be in the clinic. There have been robust data in the region of Saudi Arabia where the telemedicine applied during the pandemic. As you can see, that has been applied for patients with type 2 diabetes, and patients were extremely happy while using the telemedicine based on the available data. This technology also has been used and rapidly implemented in King Saud University by our colleague, Dr. Hamid Sufyani, where actually he was able to get those patients into actual Zoom rooms with a dietitian and educator and adjust their insulin doses, and they got an excellent response by the patients. Up to 96% of patients were really satisfied using this technology. So, diabetes technology clinic, it has component education mostly. Patients need to learn and learn and learn, come back and learn again. Patient needs to be taught about the carb ratios. Those things like the sensitivity factor needs to be discussed with the patient, and clear plan needs to be given to them before they leave the clinic, and they come back in 2 weeks' time to adjust their doses further. Now, those who do not have the technology, that doesn't mean that they cannot get into good control. I do have a lot of patients who are on multiple daily injections who are still using the basics of type 1, and they are still getting great results with that. So the take-home message, advanced diabetes technology holds a promise for all those living with type 1 diabetes as well as type 2. The technology in the current state is not a solution, but provides a greater insight to challenges. Ensuring universal access to these technologies is anticipated and will result in improving the glycemic control, and hopefully would reduce the burden of this condition. This is my email in case if you have any question, and I'd like to thank you very much for your listening. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Dr. Naweed. It's true. And I don't think يعني Okay. About the esteem of what would you be the good student 80 or
اسمعنا دكتور نويد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Who is better? The tourist 80 or this
الصوت ما هو واضح حق صاحب السؤال، بس ماني واضح. لو تقرب الميكروفون ممكن.
Your experience, who is better? The tourist 80 or this
So from my experience, is it better to have the Medtronic 780 or 640? Tandem control IQ, you mean?
دكتورة
From your experience, from your experience, who is better? T-Slim or Medtronic 780?
Okay, so you're asking, all right, Doctora, thank you for this very nice question. When I presented to you the differences are at different levels, and it really depends on you and your patient to choose whatever is better for them. Let me tell you one of the major differences that is usually very much obvious in between those two devices is the ability to autocorrect in Medtronic every 5 minutes. And this ability to autocorrect is not there in Tandem, but we have to understand that not every patient might need that kind of autocorrection. There is something called extended bolus that is a great option to be used in patients who are having a high protein and high fat meals that is not available in Medtronic and is available at Tandem. It really depends on the patient who likes the slim shape, the modern shape, the USB charging versus the old way with the Medtronic. There are many differences at the level of the sensor, at the level of algorithm, and I think as a healthcare provider, we have to provide, and we are working on websites to be given to the patient, you know, in case if they are confused about which pump to go to. So I will say just leave it to the patient. Each one of those pump has great potential and great options to be used. So for example, in Tandem, they have the exercise mode and they do have the sleep mode. And this is something really great where the patients will not get dip into hypos during the exercise and sleep, which is not there in Medtronic. Medtronic patient has to do their own manually decreasing their basal temporarily. So each pump has a great properties. It's just the way we think about it and discuss it with the patient, and the patients read about it, and then we can provide them with whatever better. And of course, we understand that, depending on the hospital, what is available in the, is usually given to the patient. So there was one study in Italy where they actually randomized and compared patients with similar background of type 1 diabetes to T-Slim and 780, and both of them did well in terms of the time range and time below range. Actually, Tandem did a little bit better in time below range. So I will say both are good. We do not have like a robust data based on a huge number of patients to say that this pump is better than the other. I tried to explain to you the differences so you can explain them to the patient.
Thank you, Dr. Naweed. Thank you.